And
Okay.
we're live now.
All right. So the first question says, how might understanding how people develop within multiple contexts give you more compassion and understanding of those who are promoting ideas that are hurtful to men, women, and children?
Okay, so I'll start. As I was reading, this lesson definitely opened my eyes to the fact that everyone has an impact on a person's socialization. Like, you never know what someone has gone through to make them that way. So that made me more understanding and compassionate. But I think the people who are promoting ideas that are hurtful, it was hard to be compassionate towards them. Because I think they don't remember maybe that everyone has gone through different things in life that make them that way. Like, that's no excuse to be like violent or whatever it is, but I was just thinking that it would be a good idea, instead of being like hurtful to the men and women, try and like say uplifting things to them, or try and teach them to be kinder instead of like putting them down, I guess. That's kind of what I got from it. It was just like, everyone's gone through something, so we do need to have compassion, but we should also try and teach that, and try and teach people to be more compassionate.
Like, kind of going off that, it's easier to understand where people are coming from. It kind of made me think, this is a really bad example for my family. But my dad's dad was a member of the KKK, and I don't know the full story of how I got into it, but my dad grew up kind of racist, not like openly, but like he definitely had those tendencies. And I used to hate that. I used to think it was, I mean, I still do. I hate that like he thinks that way, and like I can understand where like he learned it, and I can kind of be compassionate, but it's really hard to be like, well, why are you still doing it when you know it's wrong? So, especially because I want to go into counseling, I think that might come up. There's going to be people that have like these really skewed viewpoints, and like you said, you have to learn to kind of like correct it, but not like as extreme as they are, being hurtful. We shouldn't be trying to like shove it down their throats. We should be trying to show them how to like kind of gradually change it in the hope
That's a
that
good
that
point.
works.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I think just going off what you guys are saying, the compassion is understanding why someone might feel a certain way, even though I don't agree with it, but still letting them know why certain things are right, or certain things would be more or less harmful for a family. If that's just as simple as, I understand why you might feel like the state should have more rights over the child because of your bad experience with your family. But if you look at statistics, it shows that that's not true. Most of the time it's best to stay with the family. So you can kind of let them know, I understand where you're coming from, but what's best for the family is shown in a lot of different social science as well as religious ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking the same, or I wrote the same as Shaw, that, like, once we understand, the different systems and how they can affect a person's life, we can understand, like, we understand, yeah, we don't necessarily like you guys are saying, agree with their outcomes, like, the people that suffer domestic violence or sexual abuse, or they don't have family support, or they didn't even know about, any church or religion. They didn't have the knowledge of the gospel. They don't know that there is a God, or things like that. That's sometimes or I think about like my life, and I feel very blessed that I have all those things in my life, especially the gospel, knowing my purpose in life and all that. But I also had the blessing to serve a mission, and sometimes I will encounter people that they didn't believe in God. They never grew with that in their house, in their homes, so therefore they didn't have that foundation. They didn't know what to believe, and I think that's so critical in somebody's life, to have that that knowledge that, why we're here, that there is, a plan of happiness about Jesus Christ's atonement. And, those things that are so important for a person to know how to live their lives. And I think that's, like that, me understanding that, it does help me understand their behavior, but I still, yeah, the same. I don't accept it. I don't agree with it, and like, but it makes me understand their behavior.
Is Rochelle here? I see her on the bottom of the screen, but
Don't know.
well,
I'm like,
we'll
it's just a picture.
yeah, we'll see if she pops in. All right, so the next one is, which one of the systems, like chrono, macro, exo, meso, micro, do you feel more comfortable in with your advocacy efforts? And for me, right now, I feel like I'm most comfortable in the micro because, it's like family and church and school. It's kind of more community things I interact with daily. And right now, when I think about counseling, I think about either doing it through church or school, but I also feel comfortable like kind of where they all overlap. So like meso system as well, I guess, because I do think they all play a part with each other. Um, I think the trickiest one though is church, because like Julia was saying that with our beliefs we have like added insight. So trying to like blend that well with everybody else who may not believe, I think is the tricky part. Um, because sometimes you hear people talk about stuff and you're like, well, if you had the gospel, that would make sense. But you can't
Yeah.
really say that. So I think that's kind of where I'm most comfortable.
I put the micro just because that's who I'm around the most and I feel the most comfortable talking to, like my parents or friends or whatever. So that's just kind of what I was thinking. But I also sometimes don't say things to them because I don't want to hurt their feelings or whatever too. So it's kind of tricky, but I think, yeah, I would say micro for me.
Yeah, for me also, I wrote the microsystem. It's the same, like I feel that, as I learning for this major, I'm learning more stuff that I can be more helpful in that area. I'm also part of a family, part of like a church and all those things that I have more contact with. So I think that's a good start. And then once, like I getting more involved, I can evolve to a different system. But for now, like start with microsystems as well.
Yeah.
I think for me, I'd probably be somewhere between micro and meso system. Definitely, I do a lot with my family, and we talk about these issues a lot. But they come up as the PTA at my kid's school makes a decision, or my husband's work makes a change, and then it affects us all. And so I've tried to have more input in those areas so that I can have the environment that I want for my children and the different people and the different policies around them and around my family, because as my kids go play at somebody else's house, or we have a different church program and the leadership changes and all of that, like that affects then my family as all those outside things happen. And so I try and have influence in that area. Sometimes it's not very comfortable though.
Yeah.
And then going off that, which one do you feel is most needed?
I don't know for
I think Rochelle's trying real hard.
I know. I'm like, I think she's trying to talk.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what's going on with my camera. It won't turn on. I'm so sorry.
Well, we can hear you at least.
So you guys are on talking about the exo, meso, micro.
We just talked about which one you feel most comfortable in, and then we were going into which one you feel most needed. Do you want to jump in there?
Okay. I would say I probably feel most comfortable in the micro, maybe meso. I mean, definitely talking with family and friends and people that I'm close with and I know is my comfort zone. The one that is most needed, I think that's a tough one because, I mean, of course, I feel like everything begins in the home. If you have a strong family and are teaching, you know, your children correctly and have that is the greatest influence that you'll have. But listening to that video, that Kelly Houghton or whoever it was, I mean, I would have no idea of what was going on in the world if it wasn't for people like that out there advocating and out there getting their voices out there. And so that made me think about how important it is for us to actually get out of our comfort zones and to go beyond the micro and even meso and start taking bigger steps. So.
Yeah, my exact same words are what you just said. At first, before I watched the video, I thought micro, the same thing as you. Like, it starts at the home, then once anyways, like, what's the word? Expand or affect the rest of the systems from there. But after I watched the video, I kind of was thinking the macro system because the government, I think Kelly mentioned something like the government makes things a norm, like how they did same-sex marriage, like now it's normal to most people or whatever. And so if you can get to the government and make like the family a priority or whatever, then people will take it as the norm and hopefully make a difference there. So that's what I was thinking. If you could get to the macro system and get into the government, then it would obviously change the whole country, but getting there, I think, is the trickiest part.
I kind of thought this was a trick question because as you look at it, like they're all important because everything, the idea, right, is that everything affects each other. And so to say just one piece is more important than the other, I think it's difficult because obviously the family is vital, but our freedoms and whether we're allowed to make our choices for our children or what our communities are like, or that's a big deal too. And then how we get from the micro to the macro is by getting involved in the neighborhood and friends and getting involved with our community, and then we can affect more of the laws and the freedoms. So I don't know that one is more important. I think it's important to know how they all affect each other more than knowing that one's more important than the other.
Yeah, I kind of thought the same thing. I was like, they all technically have like their role that could be very important. I was kind of thinking the exosystem kind of in a specific way, because the main thing I was thinking about is that there seems to be a general lack of like knowledge and education when it comes to like the family and things like that. I had a class that talked about, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like family learning, something like that. But most communities have that. They have classes about like finance and how to help your children, especially in low income areas. So I was thinking that to kind of like, because I thought micro was kind of the most important, but I thought to strengthen micro, maybe if, you know, media was more informative and more positive and people were more aware of like programs that could help them like legally or financially and getting involved with like your neighbors and community. I just thought that might all kind of like reinforce the micro after a while. So kind of what I was thinking.
So for me, like I agree with, you know, like the thought that, you know, everything is important, but I do think that, you know, like as we start with the family, it's going to be the foundation that is going to develop into, you know, how the others are gonna can become. So if we, you know, like as a family teach the importance of work ethics, you know, like being involved in the community, being involved in our government, being, you know, like advocating for, you know, the different things, serve others. So I think, you know, wherever we do in our house, we teach what values, what morals we teach in our families, how we live the gospel. It's gonna start like impacting the other system. So little by little, you know, but it has to start with the foundation and then go from there to the different systems. So it's like, for me, it's like I don't want to say a pyramid, but the inverse. You start with the family, and then it goes to the other systems, and that's how it can help to have a better system in the different ones. Like how we, if we as a family, like can influence, our neighbors, so our neighborhood becomes, a better neighborhood, and then our neighborhood, makes a better community, and it goes like that. It goes like a snowball, like getting bigger and affecting the different systems. That's for me.
Okay, next question. How did Kelly's presentation help your understanding of the ecological approach to the family advocacy, and why? Oops, sorry.
I could go. So for me, I felt that, that all the system needs to be in the same page, like have the same purpose. At the end is helping the individual first, and then, it is, as you focus on what the individual needs are, then it's gonna follow the family, and then the society, and then, the country in the world. So all the system needs to align to the same goal, so that then that's how I understood, like, the presentation. So, like, the children's are, the first ones. So as they, focus on that, that's how, like, it can help them become good citizens, and then we start, putting them at the values and the importance of family, and why families are important, and how they can help, the society. And that's my understanding, or what I
Yeah,
got from Kelly's presentation.
oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I like that too. No, you're fine. When I was watching it, I was sort of confused, like what was at each level. So she helped me understand that better. But she said presentation, like, don't wait to take a stand because who else is going to do it? Something along those lines. And that really hit me, because I was like, yeah, in order to be a family advocate, you have to take a stand on it. Like, you can't just be like, I really know, like, families are important, but if you're not telling anyone that, then you're really not being an advocate. And so that really hit me. And then it made me realize, because, like, the whole presentation, she kind of was talking about the macro level, and I was sort of overwhelmed. I'm like, dang, like, that's cool that you're doing all that government stuff, but, like, right now I do not feel comfortable going to that level. So it made me feel like we can make a difference even at the micro level. We just have to take a stand. Like I said, we don't have to go right to the government. If we start in the families, kind of like we've all mentioned, or like even just on social media, different things like we're doing in this class, we're taking a stand, and you never know who is hearing that, and they might take it and maybe they'll go further. So I just thought that was important. Like, we do need to actually stand up, even though it can be scary. Yeah, I know that's kind of what I got from it.
Yeah, when I was watching it, I was really impressed by, like, how much she knew and how much she was doing, but at the same time I also kind of felt really uninformed, because like, I don't watch the news, I don't follow up on stuff like this, and I was like, well, I should pay more attention to these, like, big issues that are going to affect my family. And then it was kind of, I don't know if ironic is the right word, but, like, we're in a family advocacy class, and I still find myself struggling with that a little bit because I'm still, like, a little cautious to, like, put stuff out there. So, like you said, when she said, like, you need to know what you're talking about, you need to take a stand, I was like, well, duh, like, this is why we're here. So it made me realize I need to learn more so that I can be more informed when I do take a stand, because otherwise that's just not going to go well.
I thought about how, and maybe she said this and I missed it, but how really the goal of, let me look at these, I forget the names and which one goes where. You've got the microsystem and the mesosystem, and then the exosystem, which is your government and your local politics, your social services. And it seems like the exosystem, those social services, or even the mass media or neighbors, they're trying to take over the mesosystem and the microsystem, take over for the family. And she kind of touched on that, but the idea that we need to stand up and say, no, the family really is important. And I have to admit, I've kind of, when Sydney was talking about she was uninformed, and it's easy to be, I have to admit, I kind of felt the opposite. I used to homeschool my kids, and topics like this are huge in the homeschool community. And so I reached a point though where I felt like, yep, I know all those things are out there. What am I going to do about it? It just felt overwhelming. And it's not that I didn't think it was, I absolutely believe they're important. It's just the idea of, okay, so what do I do? So this has helped me to see that there are things that I can do, and to support those micro and meso systems, to support and understand and be more informed of why the family is so important. And you can't just take it away and expect to have a good society.
Oops, can you guys hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, this is so hard not being able to have it function normally. Some of the things that stood out to me as she was talking was, well, that quote by Edmund Burke, that all that is necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And I thought about that, and I had never even heard of any of this that goes on in the UN, and it made me feel sad that I'm so uninformed. Like, if you had told me about, gosh, what was it talking about, that Child's Rights Convention? I mean, on the surface, it sounds great. I would have wanted to support that. And all of these things, and often are our intentions good, but because we're not informed, we just fall into these misguided, right along with the masses. And I feel like if more people understood this more clearly, if it was explained on an intellectual level, I do think a lot more people would take a stand. But they are so clever, to say that freeing women, well, of course we all want freedoms for women, but their agenda is to free women from marriage, and to free women from being able to stay at home, and to, have federal daycares and things like that. I mean, to me, and of course we all want tolerance. I mean, who wouldn't fight for tolerance? But to realize that it's just for the homosexual agenda, not for religion, not for traditional marriage. And so it just made me think I need to study a lot more. I need to become more educated, so that in my conversations with my neighbors and on social media and on these different things, that I can contribute something meaningful and truthful, rather than just being swayed by, these standards. And so it made me feel like, on the micro level, yes, there's a lot more that I can do, but how much more informed I need to be to become more involved just by becoming aware and informed. And I loved President Kimball's quote also. Opposition uses logic to confuse, rationalizations to destroy, will shade meetings, open doors an inch at a time, and leads from the purest white through all the shades of gray to the darkest black. And I just feel like that is what's happening. And the more educated that we are, the more power we have, and the better we're able to help all of our loved ones and all of our circle of influence be able to see things more clearly. And so that was kind of what I took away from it.
Just to go along with what she just said, I was just thinking a big reason why I don't post certain things on social media or tell people things is because I don't have a bigger knowledge of that. So I really like that you said that, because if we did have more knowledge of not just the basic understanding of things, we would be more willing to share, because we'd have, if they said a question or asked a question or said something back, we'd have knowledge to back that up. So I really like that.
Okay. All right.
Thank
So
you.
the last one. What historical events and factors can you think of that have contributed to the disintegration of the family? And for me, the big one that I feel like is kind of popping up again is media, because I feel like media creeps into every system, and to a certain point they can control what kind of information they can get, they can skew it. when it comes like disintegration, I think about like gradually. I feel like media's gradually kind of chipped away. Like when they first started allowing certain things on TV and language and content, and now when I was like, we don't even have cable because half the time when I turn on TV, I'm like, what is this? And then it's really hard. I'm glad we talked about finding like good sources of information to kind of work our way through, because like I said, I'm uninformed and it's easy to like read something and take it at face value and not know that it's biased. But there's a lot of other things I think that have contributed, unfortunately, to like breaking down the family, but I think media definitely plays a big role in spreading it.
Yeah, I think the same. Like, it play a big role, media. Um, so for me, like looking back at history, I can see how women getting so involved in the workforce, start like turning point for families as they like as World War uh, forced them to go into the workforce at the beginning, right? Because they needed to support their families, and there is still like women that needs to go into the workforce to support the families because there is no a father to be the main provider. But then like later it became more like a worldly purpose and a purpose goal for them to like feel successful only if they can be in the workforce and being able to have, I don't know, like high positions in a company or like that. So and like I feel like the adversary trying to make woman like motherhood feel like something of no value or less value than a job in the workforce. And then the divorce, how it became so easy to get divorced, like the no fault divorce, that now you can just get divorced for anything, making marriage also lose their value, or how it was looked at in the past. And then the redefinition of marriage, with the same sex couples, allowing them to have that, to to get married. So all those things, like I feel in the chronos system, has affected and the disintegration of the family. And like also Cindy was saying, the media it influences a lot on how we see family now, like the modern family, or any other show that we see, like she mentioned, like just show like the values, like not being important anymore, and just like everything goes like being the new norm. So I feel that has affected and it's gonna keep affecting the family.
Yeah, I really like that. One of the things that I can't remember, I'm in a class right now, so we've been talking a lot. We've been looking back on the history of marriages and families, and I can't remember what class it is. But anyways, what I was thinking was how more people are cohabitating before they get married, because basically, I think a lot of times they just end up living together and not even getting married, and or they end up breaking up. I don't know. So that's one thing that I thought. But in the class I was learning about, they talked about marriages and how back in the day, or even sometimes now, and like a lot of LDS couples do this, is we get married and then as a couple you go through life together. You buy a house, you buy a car, you have kids, like you go through this journey together. And I think that's how it should be. Like that's family, right? Well, then nowadays it was saying that marriage is more of a capstone. So people won't get married yet. They'll buy a house, they'll buy a car, they'll have their career, they'll even have kids, and then they get married just to top off life. Like it's not, I don't know if that makes sense, but it was interesting to me. Like that's definitely affecting the family because I don't know, family, it shouldn't, I don't know, it just shouldn't be that way. We should get married, we should have kids, we should go through life together. Like that's family. So I just thought that was super interesting. It's definitely, and then I think also media, like you said, even movies and stuff nowadays are just changing the whole way family is viewed. So
Yeah, my thoughts were definitely media and going along with what Julia said about the women and how women are portrayed and how we should have different goals than family. And then I also thought a lot about all the gradual laws that have got us to where we are, from the easy divorce or from changing things from a local level, dealing with things on a local level, helping so that instead of the community supporting the family, we've taken a lot of things out of the community's hands, and those gradual laws have, I think, have made it so people feel like my neighbor's problems aren't my problems. I don't need to get involved to help my neighbor if they're struggling. That's a government issue. There's welfare for that. And so instead of supporting and loving one another, we've pushed all of that off, and I think that goes along with the selfishness which overall has permeated our country of, well, what works for me? I don't want to be married right now, so I'm just going to be divorced, or I don't want to have kids, or I don't want to take care of my kids, and that's all that matters, right? What I want, and just a pervasive selfishness.
I was thinking the same thing. I was looking back, through history, and it talks about that no-fault divorce. And, in the beginning, it sounded like a good thing. I mean, it was so sad, these women who were stuck in marriages that were bad and couldn't get out. And I don't know if you guys did the reading that in the Ryan T. Anderson book. But then after I read it, it just, I felt physically ill. My stomach hurt because of how, just step by step by step, we have come to such a place where logic doesn't seem to matter anymore. The emotions of adults and just those selfish individual desires are what trumps everything. It trumps years of history. And I loved the quote by Yuri Bronfenbrenner: "The family is the most powerful, the most humane, and by far the most economical system known for building confidence and character." And it's like nobody really cares about that anymore. Children are not important. We have this huge pet culture where kids are too much of a hassle, and so you just go get a dog. And all over out here, there are bakeries for dogs, and anyways, to me, it's just ridiculous how much it's come. But it has totally changed because I feel like everybody wants to be able to do whatever they want without any consequences. And so you can sleep around, and if you get pregnant, well, you'll just have an abortion. And you can get married, and well, if you don't feel it anymore, you can just go get a divorce. And in the book, one of the things that was just shocking to me was people talking about, instead of wedlock, it's a wed lease, and how you just enter into it for a year or 5 years or 10 years, and then at the end you kind of reevaluate to see if you wanted to continue. And I was just thinking, are you kidding? What is the point of any of this anymore then? Why? It just annihilates anything that would make sense. And talking about how this door with gay marriage has now opened it up to polygamy and thruplets and all these, weird words that I've never even heard for this, and now what is the difference between marrying a sibling or a cousin, or all these laws and rules that we've had for logical reasons, if the only thing that matters is the individual and their selfish desires? It just made my jaw hit the floor, and I just thought, there's no way to get around this. If that is the basis for everything, is just the selfishness of the individual, then none of this matters. None of the social sciences matter, that it's the best place to raise a child and it's the best thing for society, because that the individual trumps the good for the collective whole. And so that's what I took away from it. Sorry, that was kind of a long rant, but it was so shocking to me.
It gets to the point, though. No, you're right, though. It gets to the point where it feels like, so if the individual is all that matters, what I want and I shouldn't have any consequences, and I should be able to do whatever I want, why do we even have laws, right? Because laws are for the to keep the peace in society. It's the laws are about things that are more than you. If I do something, it affects somebody else. Therefore, we're going to have a law about that because my choices have consequences, right? But we're getting rid of all of that. Why? We don't need consequences. I shouldn't have to have any consequences for my choices. And it really breaks down the whole system of peace and government that we have.
I agree, and it's scary, and yeah.
All right then. Melissa, were you doing the summary?
Yeah.
You want to give a little rundown?
Sure. So in summary, we talked about understanding the different systems and having more compassion. And we said that everyone impacts socialization, and so we should be uplifting and have compassion for others who think differently, but that we still need to use proper techniques to share our views and understand that we all come from different places. We talked about which systems help advocacy, and we talked about the microsystem and the mesosystem is where we're most comfortable, but that we need the systems that we need varied. Like we all kind of express different things from the microsystem to the macro system to all of the systems. And then I thought Julia put it really well when she talked about like building blocks, how they all build on each other and they're all important. And then we talked about Kelly's broadcast, and I forget who said it. Someone had a good point about all the systems should align to have the same goals, not have separate goals. We talked a lot about how to be an advocate and get out of our own comfort zone, and that we need to be informed and choose to educate ourselves. And then historical factors or the Chronos system. There are a lot of things that have affected the family negatively to be where we are, from media to laws to how women are portrayed and what goals we should have, to easy divorces, cohabiting, and that ultimately it comes down to the emotions of adults trump everything. I think it was Rochelle that said that's the most important thing, and because of that, the family then has broken down.
Okay, then I think we've gone through everything.
Perfect. Thank you, ladies, so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Yeah.
Does anybody wants to do the setup for the broadcast? I just have it in it, but I don't want to like just like if somebody else wants to do it, I'm okay with doing it. But I just want to give the opportunity if somebody else wants to do it.
I am so technologically handicapped. I could try it, but I don't. It might take me a while. Are you a little bit tired of it, Julia? The extra?
No, it's really, but like I said, I don't want to just okay, I'm the one only doing it. So I just, if anybody wanted to do it, I also wanted to give the chance, but I can totally do it. No.
Yeah, I just don't know how.
I don't know how either, but if you want to break, I can figure it out.
Yeah.
It's very easy for me, so I can keep doing it. I just wanted to know if somebody else wanted to do it. I don't want to take the opportunity from you guys.
You are awesome.
If you don't mind, we really appreciate it, Julia. Thank you so much.
So easy.
Yeah.
No worries. Okay, cool.
Okay.
Have